There comes a point in life when you stop looking at the reflection in the mirror and you start looking into yourself. And in that moment you realize you've been living as a version of you that no longer fits. Maybe it fit once, maybe it protected you, maybe it helped you survive. But now it feels like you're moving through life, wearing someone else's identity. That version of you, shaped by expectations, regrets, old dreams, and the compromises you never spoke about, served its purpose. But now it's time to rebuild, not because you're damaged, but because you've outgrown the person you used to be. This isn't about striving for perfection or trying to impress the world. It's not about becoming a different person. It's about stripping away everything that isn't genuinely you, the noise, the pressure, the armor, until all that remains is someone grounded, whole, and honest. And here's the truth, this transformation doesn't happen on a stage, it happens in silence. No applause, no validation, no cheering crowd, just you quietly choosing yourself every single day. We live in a culture that steals your attention, drains your focus, and convinces you that fixing your life means consuming more advice, more routines, more optimization. But what if the real path forward isn't found in doing more, but in coming back to yourself? What if the answer is in slowing down, listening inward, and releasing the outdated versions of yourself that were built from fear, survival, or needing approval? Rebuilding doesn't start with action. It starts with awareness, with the small but courageous choice to turn inward, not to escape, but to transform. Every habit you create, every belief you question, every emotion you learn to sit with, each one becomes a brick in the foundation of the person you're becoming. And that person isn't shaped by dramatic gestures, but by the quiet decisions you make when no one else is there to witness them. This episode isn't a list of quick hacks. It's an invitation, a call to return to yourself, to take back the energy you've been giving away to people, habits, and worries that never deserved it. To stop running from your own potential and start rebuilding your life. One breath, one boundary, one honest decision at a time. Today, we're walking through the 25 essential pillars that will help you rebuild your life, not in theory, but in practice. These aren't just concepts, they're doorways. Each one brings you closer to the clearest, calmest, and strongest version of yourself. Not someday, now. Because the truth is, the new you isn't someone you invent. It's someone you uncover when you finally choose to focus on yourself every single day. Rediscover your passions. There was a time in your life when something made your heart light up. A dream, an idea, a feeling, a curiosity. You didn't need to explain it. You didn't need approval. You just felt alive. But over time, that spark got buried under responsibilities, expectations, noise, and the pressure to act grown up. You stopped asking yourself what excites you and started asking what's expected of you. Slowly, quietly, that flame dimmed. Rediscovering your passions doesn't mean returning to childish fantasies or unrealistic wishes. It means reconnecting with the part of you that existed before the world taught you to be practical, predictable, or pleasing. It means peeling back the layers of stress and duty to find the part of you that still dreams. You don't have to change your life overnight, but you do have to start paying attention to the things that still stir your soul, the ideas you think about when you're alone, the activities that make time disappear, the things that call to you in quiet moments. Passion isn't optional. It's fuel. Ignore it and you burn out. Honor it and you wake up. You can't rebuild your life without rediscovering what matters to you on a deeper level. Passion gives direction. It strengthens discipline. It makes hard days meaningful. But before all that, you have to give yourself permission to explore, to be curious, to try again, to begin again, to want something just because it lights you up. Start small. Return to the books, the music, the places, and the hobbies that once made you feel alive. Revisit the questions you used to ask before you convinced yourself the answers didn't matter. Take yourself seriously, not with rigidity, but with reverence. That spark inside you was never lost. It simply went quiet because life got too loud. Passion rarely shouts, it whispers, And if you move too fast or stay too distracted, you'll never hear it. So slow down. Let silence enter your life again. Let boredom open the door. Underneath the stillness, something is calling you home. Follow it, not for money, not for approval, but because it makes you feel alive. And as you do, you'll begin to remember who you are beneath the layers of fear, responsibility, and expectations. Ask yourself, what part of me have I silenced? What do I still love, even secretly? What would I do if no one was watching? Those answers aren't just interesting, they're essential. Because rediscovering your passion isn't returning to who you were, it's stepping into who you're meant to become. Cultivate self-awareness. Most people think they know themselves, but what they really know are their habits, their reactions, their fears, their patterns, and the mask they wear for the world. They live on autopilot, moving through life without ever pausing to ask, why do I act this way? What do I really want? Who am I beneath all this noise? Cultivating self-awareness isn't just introspection, it's transformation. You can't rebuild yourself if you're building on a false foundation. You must be willing to see yourself clearly, not through judgment, not through criticism, but through presence. You begin by observing your patterns, the moments you shrink, the triggers that unsettle you, the people who drain your energy. You become a quiet witness to your own life, noticing how your thoughts move, how your emotions shift, and where your energy goes. Slowly, you begin to see the gap between who you truly are and who you've been conditioned to be. Self-awareness gives you a kind of power that cannot be taken or faked. Once you see your emotional patterns, your protective behaviors, and your unconscious tendencies, you stop being controlled by them. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of repeat. You exit autopilot and return to conscious living. But this requires courage, because sometimes what you discover is uncomfortable. You might realize you've been living for approval rather than truth. You might notice how fear shaped your identity. You might see that the life you've built doesn't match your values. That's okay. Awareness doesn't demand perfection. It asks for truth, and truth is the first doorway to change. If you want to rebuild, you have to sit with your contradictions, listen to the quiet voice inside you, and ask better questions. Not, what do others expect? But, what matters to me? Not, how do I look? But, how do I feel when I'm alone? Reflect daily. Journal without filters. Sit in silence to observe, not escape. Ask yourself, where was I genuine today? Where was I hiding? What did I avoid? What did I long for? These aren't performance questions. They are clarity questions. Because you can't create a life that feels right if you don't understand who you are. You can't break your past patterns unless you understand the beliefs beneath them. And you can't build your future until you're fully awake in your present. This is the quiet revolution. Unseen, subtle, but profoundly life-changing. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be willing. Willing to observe, willing to question, willing to grow. Prioritize your well-being. We treat well-being like something we'll get to later, after the deadlines, after the stress, after things calm down. But what if well-being isn't something you add after your life stabilizes? What if it's the thing that creates stability? You can't rebuild a life on exhaustion. You can't grow in soil that's depleted. You must start viewing your peace, your rest, your emotional health, your clarity, not as luxuries, but as foundations. Prioritizing your well-being doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it's simply saying no when you've always said yes. Choosing rest over constant hustle. Choosing silence over chaos. Choosing solitude over shallow company. It's walking away from people who violate your boundaries, even if they've been part of your story for years. It's putting your phone in another room just to be alone with your own mind. It's protecting your energy because you've finally realized it matters. When you make your well-being the center of your choices, you begin to see how much of your life was built around pleasing others, not honoring yourself. You notice how you learn to self-abandon, to ignore your needs, to treat your feelings like inconveniences. But once you choose inner peace, you stop negotiating with burnout. You stop measuring your worth by productivity. You stop treating exhaustion like a badge of honor. Real well-being is deeper than trendy self-care. It's alignment. It's choosing what nourishes your mind, your body, and your spirit. It's paying attention to how people, habits, foods, places, and conversations affect your nervous system. It's creating rituals that restore you, breathing practices, morning routines, nightly wind-downs, moments of stillness. Because you deserve to feel good, not just to function. The hardest part of prioritizing your well-being is dealing with the guilt. Guilt for resting. Guilt for setting boundaries. Guilt for not being available to everyone. But ask yourself, who benefits when you're burned out? Who wins when you're drained? No one. When you take care of yourself, you're not selfish. You're stable. You're present. You're grounded. That's how you rebuild. Not by pushing harder, but by listening deeper. Ask yourself before any commitment, does this honor my well-being? Does this support who I'm becoming? If the answer is no, maybe it's not meant for this version of you. Develop healthy habits. We underestimate the power of our daily routines, not the big breakthroughs or dramatic moments, but the tiny actions we repeat every single day. Those habits quietly shape our identity, our confidence, our mindset, our future. If you want to rebuild your life, you must begin living like someone who is building something meaningful. Because habits are either chains or tools. They either keep you stuck in who you were or guide you toward who you're becoming. Developing healthy habits doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. It requires showing up for yourself even when you're tired, unmotivated, or uncertain. That's where real transformation lives, in the moments you move. Without motivation. When you stop negotiating with excuses, when you treat your goals as promises to your future self. Start small. Choose one habit, something simple but meaningful. Drink more water, stretch for 10 minutes, journal before bed. Spend the first hour of your day without your phone. Pick something manageable and make it non-negotiable. You don't need dramatic change, you need steady change. Your old habits were built for survival, but the you you're becoming needs habits built for growth. Habits that nourish you instead of drain you. Habits that ground you instead of scatter you. Habits that strengthen your sense of self instead of weakening it. And when you slip, and you will, that's not failure. That's feedback. Learn, adjust, continue. Habits aren't about rigidity, they're about rhythm. Progress isn't destroyed by a misstep, it's destroyed by quitting. Pay attention to what makes you feel grounded. Foods, routines, conversations, environments, people. These aren't coincidences, they're signals. Build your habits around them. Because powerful lives aren't built on occasional inspiration, but on consistent follow-through. When your habits align with your highest self, your growth stops being accidental and becomes inevitable. Embrace personal growth. Personal growth isn't a final destination, it's a way of living, a refusal to stay small just because it's familiar. Growth requires discomfort. It asks you to release identities you've held for years. It demands you question beliefs you once accepted as truth. It invites you into the unknown, not because you're fearless, but because your desire to evolve is bigger than your fear of change. There's something incredibly powerful about realizing you're building a version of yourself that has never existed before. You're not polishing the old you, you're creating someone new. Every time you take a risk, challenge a fear, say no to what drains you, or disrupt a pattern that has held you back, you are constructing a new identity from the inside out. And that process, though uncomfortable, is sacred. But growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a pause. Sometimes it's the moment you admit, this isn't working anymore. It's noticing the patterns that repeat, the triggers that won't go away, the emotional loops you keep returning to, and finally choosing to interrupt them. Because what you don't repair, you repeat. And what you tolerate, you teach. So embrace the stretch, embrace the uncertainty, embrace the awkward in-between stage where you're no longer who you were but not yet who you're becoming. That space is uncomfortable, but it's where transformation lives. You don't have to have everything figured out. You just have to be willing willing to grow, willing to evolve, willing to let go, because the strongest version of you is waiting on the other side of the version you're brave enough to outgrow. That's the space where real confidence is formed, not from pretending you have every answer, but from trusting your own steps even when the path isn't fully clear. Confidence grows in motion, not certainty, and along the way, you need people who don't just tolerate your evolution but actively support it. Surround yourself with those who expect you to rise, who challenge your blind spots, who remind you of your potential on the days you lose sight of it. Because growth isn't always something you can see from the outside. Sometimes it's internal. Sometimes it's you choosing peace over reaction, silence over explanation, presence over shrinking. And those quiet moments count just as much as the loud ones. Make space for new experiences. Read things that stretch your mind. Explore ideas that unsettle your old beliefs. Create even when you're unsure or imperfect. Speak even when your voice wavers. Becoming who you are meant to be isn't a smooth process. It's messy, unpredictable, uncomfortable, but it's in that mess that a stronger, clearer version of you begins to take shape. And remember, growth doesn't mean rejecting your present. It means believing in a future that demands more from you. Not more pressure, but more honesty. Because the highest version of yourself isn't far away. It's waiting for that single, brave decision to choose differently. Right now, right here, reflect on your values. Values are not just motivational words in a notebook or quotes we admire. They are the invisible framework behind every choice we make. How we treat people, how we respond under pressure, how we define success for ourselves. Yet most people move through life disconnected from their values. They inherit beliefs from parents, adopt expectations from society, and chase goals that don't reflect what truly matters to them. That's not living, that's performing. And performances eventually drain you, no matter how good they look from the outside. If you want to rebuild your life, you must begin by remembering what you actually stand for. Quiet the noise. Let go of what looks impressive. Stop asking, "What should I be doing?" and start asking, "What feels true to me?" Because clarity appears the moment comparison dies. And when you stop performing and start aligning, life finally begins to feel like yours again. Ask yourself, what do I believe in when no one is there to judge me? What principles would I defend even if they cost me comfort or approval? What qualities do I admire in others? And do I embody them or just admire them from a distance? These aren't random questions. They reveal the gap between your identity and your behavior. Living by your values doesn't guarantee everyone will agree with your choices. In fact, it often means standing alone, refusing shortcuts, and walking away from opportunities that compromise your integrity. It's difficult, yes, but it's also liberating. Because once you operate from your values, validation becomes unnecessary. Your choices make sense to you, and that's where true peace comes from. This is the root of inner strength. When your actions mirror your beliefs, you become centered, steady, unshakable. You stop searching for certainty outside because you've established it within. You know who you are, you know what matters, and no setback can steal that from you. But discovering your values isn't a one-time revelation. It evolves. You outgrow old beliefs. You refine your priorities. You learn from mistakes. What matters is that you keep returning to that question, does this align with who I want to be? That's your compass. That's how you correct your course. Because when your life is built on values, not fear, not pressure, not trends, your growth becomes genuine. Your relationships get deeper. And even though uncertainty remains, your path feels meaningful. You're no longer drifting, you're choosing. Set achievable goals. Big dreams motivate us, but they're brought to life through small, repeated actions. Setting achievable goals doesn't mean lowering your ambition. It means building a foundation that can actually support your dreams. Anyone can dream big when they're inspired, but real progress comes from goals that remain possible even on the days when motivation disappears. And those days are inevitable. That's why your progress has to be anchored in discipline, clarity, and measurable steps. You don't need a decade-long roadmap. Sometimes real change begins with defining what progress looks like today. What action, even a small one, moves you forward? What would make you proud of how you live the next 24 hours? When you break your vision into smaller pieces, it becomes tangible, something you can work with instead of something that overwhelms you. And, with each small win, your confidence grows. It tells your mind, look, you're doing it. Keep going. Over time, this builds a rhythm, a pattern, a new identity. Achievable doesn't mean easy, it means realistic. It means honoring where you are while still moving toward where you want to be. Many people burn out because they mistake urgency for ambition. They try to transform their entire life in a week, fail to maintain the impossible pace, and blame themselves instead of the plan. But you're not the problem. The approach is a meaningful. Goal stretches you, but it doesn't break you. It calls you forward, not into self-punishment. And before you commit, ask yourself why you want that goal. Not. Every dream is worth chasing. Some are born from insecurity, pressure, or comparison. So ask, who am I becoming if I chase this? If the answer inspires you, you're on the right path. If it exhausts you, reconsider. Writing your goals down is powerful. It creates clarity. It turns vague ideas into commitments. Tracking your progress keeps you accountable, not to judge yourself, but to stay honest. It becomes a conversation with your future self. Every step forward says, I haven't forgotten you. Let go of the fantasy of overnight change. Growth takes time. You don't need speed, you need consistency. Build your future with patience, humility, and trust in the process. When your goals rely on discipline instead of motivation, you stop waiting for perfect circumstances. You create them. Practice self-care routines. Self-care is often treated like an optional reward, something we squeeze into leftover minutes. But real self-care is not luxury, it's maintenance. It's the discipline of taking care of the mind, body, and energy that carry you through life. Because ambition means nothing if exhaustion is dragging you down. Burnout has no respect for your intentions. If you don't recharge, you eventually break. Real self-care isn't always soothing. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it means setting boundaries that disappoint others. Sometimes it means saying no when yes feels easier. Sometimes it's taking a walk instead of escaping into your phone. Sometimes it's sitting with your emotions instead of numbing them with distractions. Self-care isn't pampering. It's parenting yourself. It's asking, what do I truly need right now? And then giving yourself permission to honor that need without guilt. You would never let your devices run to 1% every single day. Yet somehow you treat your own energy that way. Your deadlines don't matter more than your health. Other people's expectations don't come before your peace, and productivity isn't worth sacrificing your well-being. We've been conditioned to chase performance and measure worth through output. But a life lived constantly near burnout isn't success, it's survival. Your routines don't need to be dramatic, they need to be intentional. It might be a quiet morning ritual that sets the tone for your day, choosing food that strengthens your body, moving in a way that honors your limits instead of punishing them, turning off your phone at night so your nervous system can reset. These small acts, repeated consistently, are lifelines. Self-care also includes emotional maintenance. It's giving space to your thoughts instead of letting them spiral. It's allowing yourself to feel fully and then learning to release what no longer belongs. It's giving yourself permission to rest, repair, and realign. It's forgiving yourself for past mistakes, not because they were insignificant, but because you are. You're not a machine. You're not built to operate without emotion or exhaustion. You're a human being, and you deserve care, not only when you're breaking down, but every single day before you reach that point. Some people will try to shame you for choosing yourself, but that only reveals how badly you need a better circle. The right people will understand that when You take care of yourself, you show up more present, more grounded, and more balanced for everyone around you. When you're rested, you can give more. When you're centered, you respond instead of reacting. When you're whole, you no longer rely on others to fill the empty spaces within you. So make self-care a daily ritual, not a reward, but a commitment. Self-care isn't escape from responsibility. It's the strength that allows you to carry responsibility without collapsing under it. It's how you protect the version of yourself you're working so hard to rebuild. Because without energy, clarity, and emotional stability, even your best self will crumble under the weight of neglect. Let self-care be your quiet rebellion in a world that profits from your exhaustion. And remember, taking care of yourself isn't optional, it's essential. Foster meaningful relationships. In the journey of rebuilding yourself, one of the most overlooked but powerful influences is who you allow into your life and who you choose to distance yourself from. Relationships aren't just emotional ties, they're entire ecosystems. They either nurture your growth or slowly drain the energy you need to evolve. We talk endlessly about discipline, focus, and self-awareness. But if your environment includes people who constantly trigger insecurity, comparison, or emotional instability, your growth will suffocate before it has the chance to bloom. Meaningful relationships aren't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes they're as subtle as someone who listens without judging, someone who reminds you of your worth when you temporarily forget, someone who challenges your excuses, not to belittle you, but because they see a strength in you that you haven't fully recognized yet. These are the people who act as mirrors, not masks. They reflect truth, even when it stings, and they refuse to let you shrink into a version of yourself that's beneath your potential. But relationships like these aren't accidental. They require intention. They require honesty with yourself and with others. Ask yourself, who do I feel most like myself with? Who feels safe to grow around? Who inspires me to keep evolving instead of staying stagnant? And just as importantly, who drains me? Who pulls me back into old versions of myself I've worked hard to outgrow? The tough reality is this. The people who've been in your life the longest aren't always the ones who deserve a seat in your next chapter. Letting go of relationships that no longer align with you isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. You don't owe your future to people who only know your past. You don't have to maintain bonds with those who constantly cross your boundaries or force you to question your path. That doesn't mean cutting people off harshly or without compassion, but it does mean choosing yourself even when it feels uncomfortable. It means making space for connections that fuel you rather than just fill a void. Fostering meaningful relationships also means being willing to show up authentically. You can't expect depth when all you offer is surface. You can't. Build trust if you're hiding behind a performance. The people who truly care about you don't need your perfection. They need your presence. They need your honesty. They need the real you, even when that means admitting you're struggling, because only when you allow yourself to be seen can you be loved for who you really are. And remember this, the most important relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. If your self-talk is destructive, if your boundaries are blurred, if you abandon yourself for approval, then no external relationship will heal that internal gap. Build an inner dialogue that supports you, grounds you, and challenges you. Become your own anchor so others don't become your crutch. In the end, meaningful relationships aren't measured by the number of people in your life, but by how deeply the right people truly know you. A few aligned souls can accelerate your healing, your purpose, and your power in ways you never imagined. Choose wisely. Unlock your creative potential, because the energy around you either builds the foundation of the life you're creating or quietly pulls it apart. There's a subtle revolution that begins the moment you stop labeling yourself with limiting identities. Statements like, "I'm not creative, I'm not talented, I'm not artistic," might seem harmless, but they're actually powerful declarations. They build invisible walls around your potential and keep entire parts of you locked away. The truth is, creativity isn't some rare gift reserved for a chosen few. It's a natural expression of being human. Unlocking your creativity isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering a part of yourself you abandoned along the way. You don't need to paint like a legend or write like a master to be creative. Creativity lives in the way you solve problems, organize your space, express your emotions, choose your style, or even cook a simple meal. It's the shift from fear to curiosity. It's seeing possibilities instead of limits. And once you invite that mindset in, your inner world begins to expand. You start noticing ideas, solutions, and perspectives that were invisible before. Ask yourself, when was the last time you made something purely for joy? When did you last create without asking if it was good enough, without overthinking, without aiming for perfection? Rebuilding yourself means giving yourself permission to explore, to be messy, to experiment, to play. This is how children learn. This is how innovators create. And this is how your own spirit begins to awaken after being numbed by routine. Creativity also plays a powerful role in emotional healing. When your internal world feels heavy, filled with worry, pressure, or unresolved emotions, creative expression becomes a release valve. It transforms emotion into meaning. It helps you process feelings that words can't describe. Whether it's journaling, sketching, recording voice notes, dancing in the dark, or taking small photographs of moments that move you, creativity becomes a private therapy. A language your soul uses when you can't speak what you're feeling. Most importantly, creativity reconnects you with yourself. In a world that constantly tries to shape you, to fit in, to perform, to stay efficient, creativity quietly asks, what do you feel? What do you see? What does your inner voice want to express? It puts agency back into your hands. From that place, you don't just rebuild yourself, you rebuild your relationship with life itself. You don't need special tools or perfect conditions to begin. You need one thing: the courage to start. Take out your phone and capture something that sparks your interest. Open a blank page and write one honest sentence. Doodle casually while waiting. Follow even the smallest impulse to create. It doesn't have to impress anyone. It only has to be true. Because the moment you stop asking, am I creative, and start asking, what wants to come through me, you've already opened the door. Now step through it. Overcome limiting beliefs. Limiting beliefs are like shadows, silent but always present, shaping the way you move through the world. They whisper things like, you're not good enough, you always fail, or it's too late to change. And the dangerous part is that most of the time, you don't even notice you're believing them. They sound so familiar that they blend into your identity. But these beliefs are not facts. They're assumptions formed from fear, failure, or someone else's insecurities. You weren't born doubting yourself, you learned it. Maybe someone once told you that you were too much or not enough. Maybe a failure convinced you that you weren't capable. Maybe life knocked you down enough times that you started believing the fall defined you. But here's the truth. Just because something has felt true doesn't make it real. And just because a belief has lived inside you for years doesn't mean it deserves to remain. To overcome limiting beliefs, the first step is noticing them. Observe the quiet stories you repeat in your mind, especially during difficult moments. What's the first thought when you make a mistake, when someone criticizes you, when you face a challenge? These thoughts are clues. Write them down without filtering. Awareness breaks their power. Once you see the belief clearly, the next step is to challenge it. Ask yourself, who told me this? Where did this come from? Is this based on my own experience or someone else's fear? Can I find even one moment in my life that contradicts this belief? One success, one strength, one moment I proved myself wrong. Every limiting belief has a weak point, a crack in its logic. Your job is to find it and widen it. But recognizing and questioning aren't enough. You must replace these beliefs with conscious, healthier ones. And this takes practice. You can't simply say, "I believe in myself." You have to act like it even before you fully feel it. That's where transformation starts. You build new mental patterns through repetition and experience. Tell yourself new stories. Say, "I can learn from this." Say, "I'm not there yet, but I'm growing." Say, "My past does not define what I can become." These aren't empty affirmations, they're declarations of liberation. Each one chips away at the walls that have trapped you. Slowly, you create space to grow into your real potential. Remember, your thoughts are not your identity. They are habits, and habits can be changed. Rebuilding yourself means dismantling the beliefs that quietly controlled you for years and choosing, moment by moment, to build a new reality. Manage stress effectively. Stress is not the enemy. That's the part most people misunderstand. Stress, in its raw form, is a signal. It tells you when you're unbalanced, overwhelmed, or pushing beyond what feels safe for your mind or body. Stress isn't the problem. Our relationship with stress is. Most people either drown in it or try to outrun it. But what if instead of reacting automatically, you learn to work with stress? What if you listened to it? Managing stress effectively begins with recognizing it early, before it becomes burnout, breakdown, or emotional overload. Most people ignore the signs: irritability, scattered thoughts, sleeplessness, constant fatigue. These aren't random, they're warning lights. And if you treat them like background noise, you'll repeat the same cycle of crashing and recovering. So start by checking in with yourself. Daily, ask, where is my energy? What feels heavy? What can I release? Awareness alone reduces stress more than most people realize. Once you're aware, the next step is boundaries. That means learning to say no, clearly, kindly, consistently. Every yes costs you time, energy, and mental space. If you hand out yes out of guilt, fear, or habit, you drain yourself dry. Boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary for your well-being. After boundaries comes release. Intentional practices that let stress move through you instead of building inside you. For some, it's movement, walking, stretching, lifting. For others, it's stillness, meditation, journaling, quiet breathing. There is no single method. What matters is consistency, returning to the practices even on the days when you feel least motivated, because those are the days you need them most. Then there's the mental side: overthinking, perfectionism, trying to control what you can't. One powerful way to reduce this type of stress is to simplify. Ask yourself, what actually matters today? What can I do right now that will matter tomorrow? What can I let go of because it's not mine to carry? Clarity reduces chaos. The more you simplify your focus, the less stress can overwhelm you. Another essential method of stress relief is connection. Talk to someone you trust, not to fix you, but to remind you that you're not alone. Saying your thoughts out loud often untangles them. Hearing someone say, "I've felt that," too, can ease more weight than you expect. Humans are wired for connection, and connection is medicine. Finally, understand this: managing stress isn't a one-time achievement. It's a lifestyle, a continuous cycle of noticing, adjusting, releasing, and recentering. You won't be perfect. You'll have days where you shut down, days where you snap, days where everything feels heavy, and that's okay. The goal isn't flawless control. The goal is awareness and recovery. Stress will show up, but it doesn't have to stay, and it definitely doesn't have to control your life. When you learn to manage stress with clarity and strength, you reclaim your power. You show yourself that no matter what comes your way, you can respond with intention, balance, and resilience. That's the kind of inner strength that rebuilds you from the ground up. Build emotional intelligence. Most people assume emotional intelligence only means controlling your reactions when you're angry or sad. Emotional intelligence gets talked about like it's just a way to control your feelings, but in reality, it's so much bigger than that. It's self-mastery. It's the ability to identify exactly what you're feeling, to sit with discomfort without letting it take over, and to respond to life in a way that reflects who you're becoming, not who you've been when you're tired, triggered, or overwhelmed. Emotional intelligence doesn't silence your emotions, it teaches you to understand them, and within that understanding lies your real strength. To build emotional intelligence, you have to approach your emotions with curiosity instead of judgment. When something unsettles you, pause and ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Is this anger or is it hurt? Is it fear or is it shame hiding under pride? Most people were never taught how to recognize these layers, so we end up shutting down or reacting in ways that don't align with our values. But the more precisely you can name what you feel, the more intentional and clear your response becomes. Emotions are not the enemy, they're signals, and being able to name them is the first step to understanding the signal. Once you figure out what you're feeling, the next step is learning to pause. This is the moment where real transformation either grows or collapses. When someone disrespects you, when life hands you disappointment, when frustration rises, that pause between emotion and reaction is everything. That tiny space is where you choose maturity over impulse, wisdom over ego. It's where you decide if you're going to escalate the situation or lead yourself through it. You won't perfect this every time, but even a single second of pause can change the direction of a conversation, a day, or even your decisions. That pause is where your power returns. And then there's empathy, one of the most overlooked parts of emotional intelligence. If you want to rebuild yourself, you have to understand not only your own emotional world, but the emotional world of others. That doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment or excusing harmful behavior. It means recognizing that most people act from their own unresolved pain, not because they intend to wound you. When you can see the insecurity behind arrogance or the hurt behind anger, you protect your peace without taking things personally. That is emotional freedom. But let's be honest, this work is not easy. Emotional intelligence requires emotional courage. It takes strength to admit, I'm feeling vulnerable, or I'm reacting out of fear, especially if you were raised to hide all of that. But real courage isn't avoiding your emotions. Real courage is seeing them clearly and still choosing calm, grounded action. Strength is not suppression. Strength is clarity. And here's the hidden truth most people ignore. Your future depends on this skill. The person you're trying to become, the disciplined, grounded, focused version of you, needs emotional intelligence. Because the more emotionally aware you are, the less you sabotage your own progress. The less you push away people who genuinely care. The less you lose your peace over things that are outside your control. Emotional intelligence is what keeps you steady when life gets loud. It's what helps you stand firm in chaos without turning that chaos inward. So if you want to rebuild yourself, begin here. Start by looking inward. Start by telling the truth about what you feel. Start by choosing presence over panic. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean you stop feeling them. It means they stop controlling you. And in that mastery, you'll uncover a deeper form of strength. A strength that is quiet. A strength that is calm. A strength that cannot be shaken by circumstances or people. Now let's talk about something most people completely overlook on their self-growth journey, the small victories. The tiny consistent wins, the ones nobody sees, nobody praises, nobody posts about. The ones that are so quiet you could easily ignore them. But here's the reality, if you don't learn to celebrate small victories, you'll exhaust yourself chasing the big ones. Because rebuilding your life is not just about huge breakthroughs, it's about the tiny choices that show you're still moving forward. We tend to think progress looks dramatic, quitting your job, losing 50 pounds, launching something big. But real transformation rarely looks like that. More often, it's the morning you get out of bed when depression tells you to stay down. It's the moment you say no when your old self would have said yes. It's choosing to learn for 1 hour instead of scrolling. And these small moments matter more than you realize, because they are proof that your past no longer has the final say. That's not small. That's powerful. The problem is when you measure progress only by what other people notice. If you depend on applause to stay motivated, the moment things get quiet, and, trust me, they always get quiet, you'll feel lost. Growth is invisible long before it becomes impossible to ignore. So you have to become your own witness, your own encourager, your own reminder that every time you pick the better choice, every time you resist the old habits, every time you show up as the future version of yourself, you are winning. Those wins add up. One healthy meal turns into a week of clarity. One difficult conversation opens a door to healing. One journal entry reconnects you with your purpose. But if you don't stop to notice them, appreciate them, acknowledge them, you'll convince yourself you're not progressing, even when you're actually ahead. Just because the milestones don't appear the way you imagined doesn't mean they aren't real. Celebrating your progress doesn't require a celebration or a big moment. Sometimes it's as simple as writing it down, taking a slow breath, or quietly acknowledging, that was hard, and I still did it. Give yourself the credit. No one else sees, because if you don't, you'll keep chasing validation that may never arrive. And worse, you'll walk through life feeling like you're never doing enough, even when you're doing everything right. This shift in how you see progress, this ability to honor the small, builds something most people overlook: self-respect. Not the kind that comes from applause or recognition, but the kind born from integrity, the kind that whispers, I showed up for myself today, and over time that whisper grows louder. It becomes your fuel, it becomes your anchor, it becomes the undeniable proof that you're not just dreaming about changing your life, you're actually doing it, inch by inch. So if today you did something difficult, even if it seems tiny, pause and acknowledge it. If you resisted the urge to shut down, if you took one step toward your goals, or if you simply breathed through stress instead of reacting impulsively, that is progress. Don't wait for permission to feel proud. Give yourself that permission now, because every step you take counts. Every time you choose yourself over your old habits, you are rebuilding, and that deserves to be seen. Embrace lifelong learning. Let's talk about the trait that separates people who evolve from people who stay exactly where they are. The willingness to keep learning, not occasionally, not only when life forces you to, but consistently, every single day. Because the truth is, you aren't a finished product. You never will be. And that isn't a flaw, it's one of your greatest strengths. The moment you decide you know enough is the moment your growth stops. Lifelong learning isn't about collecting certificates or reading 100 books. It's a mindset, a gentle posture of humility, a quiet curiosity that asks, what else can I understand? What else can I discover about myself, about life, about what's possible? Growth doesn't happen once you reach a destination. It happens as you move. The people who feel the most fulfilled aren't the ones with all the answers. They're the ones who constantly ask better questions. They don't treat failure as a dead end. They treat it as information. They don't see mistakes as reasons to feel ashamed. They see them as instructions. They're not concerned with appearing intelligent. They're focused on becoming wiser. There's a massive difference. Think of your life like a garden. If you stop watering it, if you stop learning, stop exploring, stop trying, it won't stay the same. It will shrink. Because nothing in life is neutral. You're either growing or fading. There is no pause button. That's why committing to lifelong learning is so powerful. It keeps your mind sharp, your heart open, and your spirit adaptable. And when life storms hit, and they always do, you don't break. You bend because you've trained yourself to evolve instead of collapse. But let's bring this into real life. Learning doesn't have to be complicated. It might look like reading one meaningful paragraph instead of losing an hour to scrolling. It might be a 10-minute reflection at night. What did I do well? What can I do better tomorrow? It could be listening to someone with a different viewpoint, not to debate, but to understand. It could be noticing your reactions and asking yourself, where did that come from? And sometimes learning is simply forgiving yourself and deciding to try again tomorrow. And don't forget, people teach you as much as books do. Everyone knows something you don't. Every experience, especially the painful ones, carries wisdom if you stop reacting long enough to reflect. Life is a tough but brilliant teacher. The question you must ask is, am I listening? There's also a quiet confidence that forms when you commit to growing. You stop fearing what you don't know because you trust that you can learn it. You stop pretending to be perfect because you value growth over image. You stop comparing your timeline to others because you understand you're chasing progress, not perfection. That is freedom. That is strength. That is resilience in a world that changes every day. Don't wait for life to force you into growth through crisis. Choose growth now. Stay open. Stay curious. Stay humble. Build your life on the foundation of someone who never stops learning, and you'll become unstoppable. Now let's move to nurturing your inner strength. There is a kind of strength that doesn't announce itself openly. It's not loud, not aggressive, not wrapped in ego. It's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. It doesn't ask for attention because it comes from something far stronger than image. This is the strength you need when you're rebuilding your life. Not the kind that dominates rooms or shows up in physical power, but the inner force that supports you when no one's watching, when everything hurts, and when quitting seems easier than trying again. Inner strength doesn't grow from avoiding pain. It grows from meeting pain with clarity, with courage, and with unwavering discipline. So how do you cultivate this kind of strength? It begins in the small choices, the quiet, consistent ones. It's waking up when you said you would, even when you didn't want to. It's doing the work when nobody is clapping. It's telling the truth even when lies would be easier. It's choosing long-term growth over temporary comfort. These aren't glamorous decisions, but they're sacred. Because each time you choose discipline, you deepen your trust in yourself, and that trust becomes your armor. Most people believe strength is something you're born with, like some people have it and some don't. But that's a myth. Strength is built, just like muscle. And, like any muscle, it only grows through resistance. You don't become stronger by running away from discomfort. You become stronger by facing it repeatedly, until the things that once broke you become the things that now build you. Yes, you will break sometimes, that's part of being human. But inner strength doesn't mean being unbreakable. It means being rebuildable. It means knowing that even if you fall apart, you have the ability to rise again, because you have trained yourself to rise. Because resilience has become your habit, not your performance. Because you have stopped expecting others to carry you and learned how to carry yourself. And nurturing inner strength also means protecting it. You cannot give your energy to everything and everyone and expect to stay whole. You must learn the discipline of saying no, not out of selfishness, but out of clarity and focus. You have to guard your peace, your routines, your mind. These are the places where your strength is formed. Protecting them isn't weakness, it's strategy, it's self-respect. Also, release the idea that strong people don't feel things deeply. They do. They just don't allow those feelings to take over their actions. They sit with them, process them, understand them, and then choose to act from clarity instead of chaos. You have that ability as well. It isn't reserved for a select few. It's within you, waiting to be chosen, practiced, and lived. And here's something important. The strongest people often look completely ordinary. They don't need to showcase their strength because they embody it quietly. They don't need to dominate a room because they've learned the power of silence. They don't need to be the center of attention because they're finally at peace with themselves, and they don't look to the world for validation anymore. When you strengthen your inner world, you stop reacting to everything. You no longer get shaken by every criticism, rejection, or delay. You learn to breathe, to ground yourself, to respond with calmness rather than panic. And that changes everything. You become the calm within the storm, the quiet stability in chaos, the person others respect not because of what you have, but because of the steadiness you carry inside. So ask yourself honestly, what are you doing each day to fortify your inner world? What habits are feeding your resilience, your courage, your sense of self, respect, and what habits need to be replaced, not tomorrow but today. Because real peace isn't found by escaping life. It's found by becoming strong enough to stand fully inside it. Improve work-life balance. There is a silent epidemic most people treat as normal, the slow erosion of life caused by work. It starts quietly, one skipped lunch, one late night, one quick weekend to catch up. And slowly your schedule becomes packed, but your spirit feels emptied. Your inbox is handled, but your joy has disappeared. You accomplish more but feel less. Work-life balance isn't a luxury, it's survival, and it's one of the highest forms of self-respect you can practice. We live in a culture that glorifies burnout. Exhaustion is treated like an accomplishment. Hustle is celebrated. Productivity is mistaken for purpose. But the truth is simple. What's the value of success if the price is your health, your peace, your relationships, your sense of meaning? That's not success. That's quiet self-abandonment. Improving work-life balance begins with redefining success. It means realizing your worth isn't tied to how busy you are or how many hours you grind. You are not a machine. You're not a tool for someone else's goals. You are a human being, and humans are not designed to run endlessly without moments of rest, joy, and genuine connection. You're meant to live. And living well requires knowing when to work and when to walk away. Start by setting boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're bridges that lead you back to a healthier version of yourself. They protect your time, your energy, your mental clarity. And boundaries apply not just to others but to you. You must learn to shut the laptop at a certain hour, to stop checking notifications every few minutes, to take breaks that aren't packed with guilt. You must schedule your life with the same seriousness you schedule your work, and then honor those commitments because they matter. Balance isn't only about time, it's about energy. Some tasks drain you more than others. Some people drain you too. Pay attention. Look closely at your days. Where is your energy leaking? Which routines are draining your clarity instead of building it? You may not control every part of your work, but you absolutely control how you recover from it, how you breathe through it, how you recharge, and how you create space for things that bring you back to life. And when you create space, fill it intentionally. Don't just unplug, reconnect. Reconnect with yourself, with your family, with silence, with hobbies that remind you of who you are beyond your job title. Balance is not about escaping work. It's about realigning your priorities. It's about remembering that life isn't what happens after work. It's the main story. Work is only one chapter. Stop waiting for someone to give you permission to put yourself first. No one will. You have to claim it. And yes, at first it may feel selfish, but what's truly selfish? Caring for yourself or ignoring your well-being until your collapse becomes someone else's responsibility. Your well-being isn't just for you. It matters to everyone who needs you to be present, stable, and emotionally available. Improving your work-life balance isn't a one-time decision. It requires regular recalibration. There will be busy seasons, deadlines, pressure, but if you've built a strong foundation, if you've created room for rest, reflection, and connection, you won't be thrown off course. You'll know how to return to your center. You'll know how to live, not merely survive. Balance isn't something you stumble upon once. It's something you construct daily, with choices, with boundaries, with courage. Discover your purpose. There comes a moment, usually quiet, usually unexpected, when you look at your life and wonder, is this all there is? Maybe you followed every rule, met every expectation, achieved everything others said would make you fulfilled, and yet something feels missing. That missing piece is purpose. It's not an optional feature. It's the foundation of why you wake up each day. Without it, success feels hollow. Progress feels random. Rest doesn't feel deserved because you aren't sure what you're striving toward. Discovering your purpose isn't about uncovering some grand cosmic mission written somewhere out in the universe. It starts by looking inward, listening to the deepest part of you that has been quietly asking for more. Purpose isn't something you magically find in a single revelation. It's something you discover by living intentionally, by following the sparks of your curiosity, by noticing what energizes you and what depletes you. The signs are always there, hidden in the moments that make you feel alive, in the times you forget the clock, in the tasks you pursue even when no one notices. Yet, many people silence these signals. They override them with logic, fear, or the expectations of others. They convince themselves it can't be that, it's too small, it's too risky, and in doing so, they turn away from the very thing that could give their life meaning. To uncover your purpose, you must be willing to step into discomfort. You have to step outside the script someone else wrote for you, outside the career path designed by expectations, beyond the identity you built, to please others, beyond the comfort of familiar norms. It takes courage to ask yourself, what do I truly want? And even more courage to take steps toward that answer. But that is the work. Purpose is not passive, it is actively pursued. It doesn't always announce itself clearly. It may not come with a job title or immediate financial reward. It may feel like starting over. But if it fuels your energy rather than drains it, if it ignites a fire inside you, that is your sign. You don't need all the answers immediately. You simply need to move toward what feels most authentic. Purpose evolves as you evolve. It grows with each experience, each failure, each insight. It isn't a straight line. It's a series of moments where you feel fully aligned with who you are and what you're doing. And then you create more of those moments, one choice at a time. And remember, your purpose doesn't need to be world-changing to be transformative. You don't need to save the world to matter. Sometimes your purpose is quietly being a steady presence in someone's life, to create beauty, to write, to teach, to build, to nurture, to ask questions, to heal. The impact isn't measured by scale, it's measured by authenticity. What matters is that it's yours. The danger of avoiding purpose is that life starts to happen to you, not through you. You drift, you numb, you chase the next distraction hoping it will feel like enough. But nothing external will fill that void. Purpose is the only thing that can. So begin by asking sharper questions. What excites me? What pains me to see in the world? What would I do even if it weren't required? Which version of myself feels most authentic? Journal, reflect, talk to people who inspire you, then experiment. Try, fail, adjust, learn. The more you take action, the more clarity you gain. Purpose doesn't scream, it whispers. It asks you to listen when the world is loud, to trust yourself when the path is unclear, to believe that your life is not random. It is raw material waiting to be shaped intentionally. When you live from that place, when your days are aligned with something deeper than comfort or approval, everything shifts. You stop chasing, you start creating, you move with intention, you lead with meaning, enhance mental clarity. Your mind is your most powerful tool, yet it is also the easiest to overload. In a world that never stops clamoring for attention, clarity becomes a rare and vital form of strength. Most people don't lack intelligence or drive. They lack mental stillness. They attempt big decisions through foggy lenses. They attempt meaningful creation while constantly reacting to distraction. But a scattered mind cannot build anything enduring. If you truly want to rebuild yourself, you must make clarity a non-negotiable. Mental clarity isn't about knowing everything. It's about recognizing what truly matters. It's about cutting through the noise so you can hear your own thoughts clearly again. This begins by removing what no longer serves you: endless scrolling, constant multitasking, the perpetual demands on your attention. Every notification, every irrelevant conversation, every unnecessary worry chips away at focus, presence, and peace. You cannot think clearly in chaos. Simplify. Declutter your digital life. Say no to meetings or discussions that don't align with your goals. Begin your day in silence, not on a screen. Get comfortable doing one thing at a time. Your brain wasn't designed for constant switching between tasks. The more fragmented your attention, the less effective you become. True clarity is born in stillness, not speed. Another essential part of mental clarity is learning to distinguish what belongs to you and what doesn't. Not every problem requires your engagement. Not every opinion deserves a reaction. Not every emotion needs to be dissected endlessly. Sometimes clarity is choosing to step back, observe, and hold space without judgment. When you stop personalizing everything, you create room to think objectively, and that's where wisdom begins. Sleep, nutrition, and movement also feed mental sharpness. A tired mind is cluttered. A sugar-crashed brain can't plan ahead. A sedentary lifestyle diminishes creativity. So, clarity isn't merely a mental exercise, it's a full-life discipline. It is the product of how you care for your body, what you allow into your environment, and the standards you maintain for your inner world. Sometimes the most powerful action is to pause. Breathe, step away, write things down. When thoughts swirl uncontrollably, put them on paper. When a decision overwhelms you, break it into smaller parts. Clarity often hides behind the illusion of complexity. The truth is, most challenges are not inherently complicated. We've simply let noise infiltrate the conversation. You'll know clarity is returning when urgency no longer dictates your every move. When you start making choices rooted in your values instead of your emotions, when your mind stops feeling like a battlefield and begins to feel like a sanctuary, that is when creativity returns. That is when your vision sharpens. That is when life no longer feels like a constant reaction but begins to feel purposeful, directed. Mental clarity is not a luxury. It is a necessity for constructing the life you truly desire. Without it, you will keep solving the wrong problems, chasing paths that lead nowhere, and wondering why fulfillment seems perpetually out of reach. But when your mind is clear, your decisions gain power. Your time becomes intentional, and your energy begins to work for you, not against you. Develop resilient strategies. Life rarely gives warning before it disrupts your plans. It does not ask if you are ready before testing your patience, your strength, your beliefs. This is why resilience is more than a virtue. It is a survival skill. Those who continue to rise are not always the strongest or the smartest. They are the ones with strategies, systems, and mental frameworks that activate when everything else collapses. Resilience is not about pretending the hurt isn't real. It is about having a process that allows you to feel pain and continue moving forward. Many think resilience is sheer endurance, pushing blindly through adversity. True resilience is far more intelligent. It is about knowing when to pause and reflect, when to adapt, when to release. A resilient strategy does more than help you survive. It transforms hardship into insight. Every setback becomes data. Every disappointment becomes feedback. Every failure becomes a mirror. The first step is to stop personalizing adversity. Life is not targeting you. Setbacks are not indictments of your worth. They are part of the terrain, not proof that you're off course. When you stop interpreting obstacles as judgments, you reclaim your power. You begin to see circumstances with clarity, free from the emotional fog that clouds wise response. That is where strategy begins, in objectivity. Next, prepare before the storm hits. Don't wait until you are broken to consider repair. Build routines that protect your mindset. Cultivate habits that anchor you: journaling, silence, movement, time in nature, meaningful conversation. These are not indulgences, they are armor. When life shakes your foundation, these anchors keep you steady. The goal isn't to avoid being knocked down. It is to construct a system that restores you faster each time. One of the most undervalued resilience tools is flexibility. Rigidity shatters under pressure. Flexibility, the ability to shift plans without abandoning your values. Strength. When your identity is not tied to a single outcome, you become untouchable. You stop collapsing when events deviate from expectations. Instead of breaking, you bend, adjust, and move forward, guided not by bitterness, but by wisdom. Another crucial strategy is clarifying your why. Why are you rebuilding? Why have you chosen this path? When your purpose is clear, patience deepens. Commitment strengthens. A compelling reason prevents minor setbacks from derailing your progress. Challenges become preparation for something greater, not threats. Create space to process pain. Denial is not resilience. Suppressing emotions only ensures future eruptions. Find outlets. Speak to someone. Write it down. Sit in silence and breathe through the weight of it all. Resilient people confront discomfort with compassion. They allow themselves to grieve, to feel, to heal, without letting those emotions define them. Most importantly, believe in your ability to rebuild over and over. No matter how many times life topples you, remind yourself, I know how to rise. That belief is confidence no one can give. It is earned, cultivated, and becomes your secret weapon when all else fails. Resilient strategies are not simply about surviving hardship. They are about converting it into strength. You do not need to pretend pain does not exist, but you can choose not to remain broken. Life will continue testing you, and each time you will be more prepared, grounded, capable. This is the power of strategy over emotion, structure over chaos, intentionality over reaction. Foster self-acceptance. There is a quiet battle many fight every day, not with the world but with themselves. A war between who they are and who they believe they should be. Between their feelings and what they think they are permitted to feel. This inner conflict breeds tension, shame, self-criticism, and worst of all, disconnection. How can you build anything meaningful if the foundation of your relationship with yourself is rejection? Self-acceptance does not mean settling. It does not mean abandoning growth. It means choosing to stop waging war with your reflection and beginning to understand it. It means saying, I see my past. I see my mistakes, my flaws, my regrets, and I still choose to stand with myself. No transformation will feel secure if it is rooted in self-hate. True, lasting, peaceful change only flourishes when anchored in compassion. When you accept yourself, you stop seeking permission to exist. You stop apologizing for your sensitivity, ambition, desires, and imperfections. You take ownership of your story, not as something shameful, but sacred. Every chapter, even the painful ones, becomes evidence of your humanity. This is what makes you real, relatable, and authentic. Too often, self-acceptance is mistaken for self-indulgence. People think if I accept myself, I'll stop pushing forward. The opposite is true. The more you accept who you are, the more energy you free to become who you are meant to be. Pretending, performing, and comparing drain energy. Acceptance transforms that energy into focus, creation, and growth. It becomes fuel, not a cage. You must also unlearn the voices that told you you weren't enough. Many of us carry beliefs handed down from parents, teachers, society, culture, messages that we should be thinner, richer, quieter, louder, more masculine, more feminine, more normal. But who decides normal? Who said your true self isn't enough? And why do you still believe it? The work begins here. Challenge the inner critic. Notice patterns. Catch yourself in moments of self-rejection, judging your emotions, calling yourself weak for feeling, lazy for resting. Ask, would I speak this way to someone I love? Would I treat a child this way? If not, why tolerate it for myself? Part of self-acceptance is embracing your journey, timeline, and pace. Stop comparing yourself to others' highlight reels. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where your growth is happening. Keep showing up, being honest, honoring your truth. You will arrive on your path, on your schedule, not theirs. Acceptance is not a feeling you stumble into. It is a practice, daily, minute by minute. Especially on difficult days when you fall back into old patterns, when Your mind wants to spiral when you feel like failing. That is when you double down, when you say, I may not like how I feel now, but I stand with myself. Because if you don't stand with yourself, who will? Criticism and judgment are everywhere. You cannot control that, but you can decide not to join it. You can be the one person who shows up for yourself with patience, understanding, and grace. From that grounded self-compassion, you become unstoppable. You are no longer fighting yourself, you are walking beside yourself. That is where true power resides. Unlock your full potential. Most people never tap even a fraction of what they could be. Not because they lack intelligence, talent, or capability, but because they believe they cannot. They remain in roles they've outgrown, relationships that suppress them, and environments that dim their light. Why? Because along the way they learn to play small, to avoid discomfort, to not shine too brightly, to not demand too much. Over time, that conditioning becomes a prison, one they mistake for personality. Your potential is not fixed. It is alive. It grows each time you challenge the version of yourself that says, "This is all I am." You do not unlock your full potential by waiting until you feel ready. You unlock it by taking the uncomfortable step before you feel capable, by saying yes to growth that scares you, by leaning into discomfort as a guidepost, not punishment, signaling progress toward something new. There is no secret formula, no one big break. Most who seem to have unlocked greatness did it not through dramatic leaps but by consistent small decisions. They acted when they didn't feel like it. They practiced in the dark until their excellence became visible in the light. They studied when no one was watching. They rose on difficult days. They built momentum quietly, deliberately, persistently. The world often calls them lucky, but luck is rarely random. It is simply the byproduct of relentless alignment with purpose. To unlock your true potential, you must also confront the limitations you've imposed on yourself. That persistent inner voice that whispers, "You can't, you're too late, you don't belong" is not reality. It is a memory, a fragment of someone else's fear that lodged itself in your mind. Every time you obey it, you reinforce it. Every time you defy it, even in the smallest way, you begin to craft a new narrative, one where you are the author, not an echo of others. You don't need to overhaul your entire life in one night. Start with a single habit, a single conversation, a single risk. Potential grows through motion. Clarity emerges through action. Stop attempting to chart the entire journey before taking a step. The next version of you doesn't need a perfect plan. It needs a decision to stop shrinking, a decision to stop settling, a decision to rise. Do not confuse humility with hiding. True humility is not about diminishing your gifts. It is about using them with intention rather than arrogance. It is about recognizing that your strength is not a threat, but a tool to build, to help, to lead. The world doesn't need more people dimming their light to make others comfortable. It needs those who are fully alive, fully illuminated, and willing to demonstrate what is possible. Unlocking your full potential is not solely about achievement, it is about alignment. Are your choices guided by your inner compass or by the fear of judgment? The moment you stop outsourcing your direction and start listening inward, that is when transformation occurs. That is when life begins to feel real, anchored, and true. And remember, unlocking potential is not a single event. It is a lifestyle, a mindset, a vow to yourself that you will no longer play small for the sake of safety. Resistance will appear. Doubts will rise. Yet, if you continue choosing growth, even when it is difficult, even when it is slow, one day you will look back and realize, I didn't just unlock my potential. I lived it. Gratitude is not merely a polite acknowledgement of good fortune. It is a transformative mindset that reshapes how you experience life. It turns scarcity into abundance, hardship into wisdom, and the ordinary into sacred. The most profound gratitude is available in every moment, even amidst chaos, uncertainty, and struggle. Too often, we postpone gratitude, thinking, I'll be thankful when I earn more, when I achieve more, when life aligns perfectly. Life does not wait. If you delay appreciation, you risk chasing one milestone after another, never feeling truly fulfilled. Gratitude is not a consequence of attainment, it is the foundation for it. Begin with appreciation, and you no longer depend on external perfection to find peace. Gratitude also interrupts negative spirals. When your mind focuses on what's missing, unfair, or broken, gratitude redirects your attention to what is still good, still working, still worth honoring. It doesn't erase pain, but it changes your posture. Your perspective shifts. You cease being a victim of circumstance and become an active participant in your own healing. This is not toxic positivity. True gratitude is courageous. It acknowledges suffering and still finds meaning. It recognizes imperfection and still honors what remains. It keeps your heart open even when the world tempts you to close it. Start small. Notice the sunlight on your face, the quiet of the morning, the simple fact that you awoke with another opportunity to begin anew. Each evening, jot down 3 moments of joy, insight, or resilience. The more you seek reasons to be grateful, the more you discover them. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Gratitude fosters generosity. When your cup is full, you share freely. You lift others without diminishing yourself, giving without expecting return. In a culture of competition, comparison, and complaint, grounded, gratitude is revolutionary. Make it your foundation, not your reaction. Let it guide how you speak, how you use your time, how you honor your body. Let it whisper, I am grateful for my journey, and I trust the path ahead. Gratitude does more than elevate your spirit. It builds resilience, transforms hardship into depth, loss into legacy, and reminds you that beauty within cannot be taken. Embrace change with courage. Change is one of life's few certainties, yet one of our greatest fears. We cling to comfort, even when it constrains or harms us, because familiarity feels safe. But here is the paradox. The very change you resist may be the doorway to the life you've always wanted. To rebuild yourself, you must not only accept change, but walk into it willingly, eyes open, heart steady. Consider the energy we waste resisting the inevitable, delaying decisions, remaining in draining environments, replaying broken narratives. We tell ourselves we need clarity, courage, or the perfect time. But courage is cultivated through action, through stepping into uncertainty. True courage is not the absence of fear, it is moving forward, despite it. It is standing at the edge of the unknown and saying, I may not see the full path, but I trust myself to navigate it. It is releasing control over outcomes and choosing growth even when it is uncomfortable. Every stronger, wiser, freer version of yourself exists on the other side of change. Often we fear loss of identity, routine, relationships, certainty. That fear is real. But what if you reframed it? What if letting go creates space for something greater? What if endings are beginnings? You have survived change before. You have adapted, evolved, restructured, and grown. That history proves you can handle transition, even when it feels chaotic. Practicing courageous acceptance in small moments, shifting routines, changing your environment, saying yes to growth, saying no to drain, builds the resilience needed for larger shifts. Life will continue moving. Change is inevitable. The question is, will you meet it with fear or faith? You don't need a perfect plan, you need willingness. Willingness to grow, to stumble, to rise again. Bravery is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet resolve to keep going. It is showing up when giving up feels easier. It is trusting the process, even when progress is slow. Invite change. Let it shake assumptions, dismantle false stability, and reveal forgotten strength. Let it make you braver, clearer, more alive. Embracing change with courage is not mere survival, it is evolution. It is the path to shaping life intentionally, not reactively. Unlock your authentic self. There is a version of you that does not need to prove, perform, or please. Your authentic self is not created, it is remembered. It is already inside, patiently, waiting. Rebuilding yourself is a return home. You were born whole. Before the world dictated who to be, you were enough. Life layers expectations, comparisons, shame. We wear masks to survive, fit in, or be accepted, and eventually forget our original face. Reclaiming authenticity is gently shedding these layers with intention, honesty, courage. Ask the hard questions. What do I believe because I truly know it? What have I adopted because others told me to? What brings me joy, not just approval? Who am I when no one is watching? Answers may whisper. They emerge in solitude, after breakdowns, or in the quiet power of saying no to what never felt right. Authenticity is alignment, thoughts, words, and actions in harmony, living from inside out. That alignment brings peace, not of comfort, but integrity. Even if others disapprove, you are not betraying yourself. Living authentically shifts energy. You attract relationships that see the real you. Life feels fulfilling rather than performative. Validation becomes internal, and paradoxically, the more you stop impressing the world, the more the right people are drawn to your essence. Living authentically requires bravery. Roles, environments, even people may no longer fit. Some may resist your new version. That's acceptable. Authenticity costs what is false and rewards freedom. Your true self is not perfect. It carries flaws, contradictions, wounds. Yet it is real, alive and powerful. Trust it, act through it, speak from it. Stop living on autopilot. Start choosing actions that reflect truth, not fear. Do not search for a new identity. Reconnect with the child who dreamed boldly, loved freely, spoke honestly. That self needed no permission, only existence, and that self is still you. Rebuilding is not becoming someone else, it is unearthing who you always were. When you unlock authenticity, you realize you were never broken, just buried under what you thought you had to be. You were never meant to fade into the background of your own life. You were never meant to live disconnected from your passions, power, and truth. Rebuilding is not about impressing the world, it is about honoring yourself. The moment you decide to stop drifting, doubting, and delaying is the moment transformation begins. It is challenging, heavy, yet every step toward yourself, no matter how small, is revolutionary. It declares, I will no longer abandon myself for acceptance. I will no longer shrink to fit a world that undervalues depth. This journey rebuilds more than habits or routines. It restores self-respect, peace, and soul. Choose presence over performance, depth over distraction, purpose over people-pleasing. Look in the mirror and declare, I am no longer waiting, I am becoming. Your dream life is not distant, it is shaped in the quiet. Hours of reflection, discipline, and intentional choices. Rebuild yourself slowly, fully, intentionally. Make your focus yourself every day. You deserve a life that is truly yours. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who needs it. And if you are ready for deeper growth, clarity, and strength, subscribe to Stoicism Notebook. This is only the beginning.